Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to ModGolf Live. I am Colin Weston, your host. I'll be with you for the next half an hour. Also with my guest today, who is Paul Jansen, who is the president and CEO, or the president. I guess he's not the CEO. Maybe he is, but I think definitely the president. He's the man in charge of Himalayas Golf. And Himalayas Golf, as we'll get into, design and construction of not only golf courses where they started out, but they are doing incredibly innovative smaller projects that are based in entertainment, that are pure golf, and everything in between. So can't wait to get Paul on here because this is something we've been looking at for some time to have Paul join us. So I am excited for this one today. So as we get started here, one thing I wanted to mention, this is live and interactive here. So if you're on YouTube here, let's ask some questions here. Don't be shy. I've already put in comments here. I said, hey, welcome to the show. I'm joining you from sunny Vancouver today. Everybody thinks it rains here all the time, but actually in the summertime, it's nice and sunny. So yeah, let us know where you're from and your name. So with that, hey, we've got Lloyd, who actually I met a couple of weeks ago. We got Lloyd joining us from Knoxville, Tennessee. Lloyd, thanks for joining us. Said as we go here, Lloyd, do you have any questions here for Paul as we go? Let us know. That's what we're all about here. Okay, so as we get started here, also being Monday, I do a little thing to get started here before I bring Paul on, and that is my Monday morning musings. I know we're doing a little bit later today. It's already noon here in Vancouver. It's 3 p.m. Eastern, and I think where Paul is, wherever you are in the world, it's got to be morning sometime, somewhere. So we're sticking with that little alliteration there with the Monday morning musings here. Yeah, over the last week, because we did relaunch ModGolf Live, took a little bit of a hiatus. I've been traveling and some other things in life here. But one of the things that I've been creating that I've done for over a month now that some of you have been following, and that is this positivity project that I've done. It's not only on YouTube, also on Instagram. We've been posting them on LinkedIn, and I'm trying to do it every single day. I'm up to day 27. I've put this to myself for a 100-day positivity project. And I'm just posting a little video of just something that made me smile today. It could be something small, like an awesome cup of coffee. Could be something bigger, like we celebrated, I think, on day 20. And that was the 200th episode of the ModGolf podcast after 8 years. So that's something I'm really proud of, reaching that milestone, and the amazing people, not unlike Paul, who we're going to have on here in a moment. And that's something that I'm very proud of also. But we're always evolving here with ModGolf. I said it started off with the podcast over 8 years ago in 2017, the YouTube channel. And one thing I've been developing for the last couple of weeks, actually a couple of months, and that is a new show to enhance what we're doing with these conversations that we have with Paul and all these other amazing innovators and entrepreneurs in the golf space. And that is a show I'm calling the Weekly Roundup. So it's going to be a quick 10, 12-minute show that is just going to be covering all the top stories in golf innovation and all the things that I'm passionate about, whether that's technology, entertainment, sustainability, design, community building. So this quick hit. So one thing I want to ask you, if you're with me here today, or if you're watching this afterwards, because we get lots of people, we're getting about 700, 800, 900 views on this on YouTube afterwards. So thank you everyone for joining in there. That hey, if you leave in the comments that I've done a demo, I've done a pilot, I guess you can say, that I haven't released, just to kind of get the feel for this. If you would be kind enough to listen to this, I can give you the link and give me some feedback. I would greatly appreciate that. Like I said, don't have to say everything that's nice. If the things that don't work or you don't like, just let me know. As entrepreneurs, as Paul will say, that's how we improve here, is that design process, that iteration, and that's how we go with that. All right. That's enough of me talking. Now it's time for the main act, and that is Mr. Paul Jansen. And there he is. Paul, welcome to ModGolf Live.
Thanks, Emil, for having me, Colin. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So, Paul, where are you joining us from today?
So I'm in our Toronto office today, which is, and you'll see it's fairly close to the airport here in Mississauga. So, yeah, it's nice and sunny, and yeah, looking forward to this.
There we go. Well, you're very close to where I grew up. I grew up just north of where you are. I grew up in beautiful Brampton.
Okay.
There we go, where I just was, where my 90 almost 99-year-old dad still lives in the house that he bought when he moved from Montreal with our family in 1962. So there you go. So you have to drop it and say hi to my dad. I'm sure he'll have a scotch or a beer with you there too.
I will. Well, I mean, it's certainly grown. I mean, we're doing a project just north of Brampton in Caledon, and when you drive to Brampton, it almost feels like it's never ending. There's lots and lots of new builds going on. So I'm sure it was a lot smaller back in your day. Yeah,
it certainly was. It really was. When I grew up, I've been out here for 30 years now, but certainly when I left after graduating architecture school in Toronto and moving out, yes, when I go back, it's like everything's kind of bled into each other. It is big.
Yeah.
And Caledon is beautiful. You're up there doing some work. So I'd love to hear about that particular project, but let's pull back here to start with. Why don't you give everyone an overview? I will pull up the website here in a minute, but let's just paint a picture with your words here. Why don't you tell us what you're doing as president of Himalayas Golf, what you do and why you do it with Himalayas Golf?
Yeah. Well, I'm president and founder. We founded Himalayas Golf a few years ago. In fact, we're our business is about designing and building, golf in small spaces, really. I mean, we specialize in short game practice, and we also specialize in golf entertainment. And we work with both grass and artificial turf, and either or. And that's on a global perspective. I mean, we've got projects complete and on the go in 5 continents, including here. And I run a team of course designers, engineers, project managers, and I've got a small back office too. And then, we work with construction teams as well, and we have a bunch of trusted contractors who we work with around the world. But yeah, I mean, our work is predominantly in the kind of golf and small spaces sector. So yeah.
There we go. Okay, well, speaking of golf and small spaces, it's interesting because how I learned of you and I connected on LinkedIn a while ago, but I had the good fortune of speaking at the Golf Business Technology Conference in Belfast a couple of months ago back in May, where I met Sir Nick Faldo because he was speaking there and also put on a short game clinic for us. So, and that's what I learned about golf and small spaces. So this is interesting because originally we're looking to have both you and Sir Nick on the ModGolf podcast, but just because you're both so busy that it may be December before we get you both on here. So I said, hey, let's divide and conquer, Paul. Let's get you on here now. We can have Sir Nick come on and tell his side of the story later on. But yeah, let's focus on golf and small spaces. Why don't I do this? I've got the website here. Why don't I pull it up here? Why don't you run through? And I know there's a tab for golf and small spaces. So why don't we go through the website and I can be your navigator. Just tell me where you'd like to go and we'll do that.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, I mean, probably a bit of backstory here. I mean, Sir Nick and I have known each other for a long time. I was at one time based out in London, and I worked for Nick as one of his lead designers. This was back in the early 2000s,
right?
And we worked on projects around the world in Asia and Europe and elsewhere, and we working on projects here in North America as well. We were doing we're currently working on a really large 18-hole scale golf course in Portugal, and so Nick and I was talking about kind of introducing people to the game of golf, and golf taking a long time, and the limited space there is for golf, and how there's not enough golf spaces, that kind of, bring people into the game. And, Nick's particularly passionate about this, given his junior series. And we're certainly passionate about it, given the work that we've done over the past 5, 6, 7 years in that space, be it indoor, as you've seen there, or outdoor. I mean, that picture there is St. Croix in Wisconsin, which is a 20,000 square foot putting course linked to an actual golf course.
Okay.
And that's introduced people to the game of golf, and and these are mums and dads and grands and grandmums who haven't played the game, and they're out there with a putter in hand, because it is a form of golf. And from there they might move on to bigger things. And so yeah, so Woodson, Nick and I spoke about this in some detail, and we thought, hey, we should call it something, and we named it Golf in Small Spaces. And as you've seen there, we have a really good sales deck, and we have some really good examples now of spaces that are as small as 5, 6, 7, 8,000 square feet up to 50, 60, 70 acres. And this kind of spreads across the type spectrum, being putting courses, indoor facilities, 12-hole golf courses, 6-hole golf courses, par 3 courses, driving ranges. I mean, that's a good example there. I mean, that picture up there is Sydney, Australia. That's Swing City, which we were involved in, and that's about a 15,000 square foot putting course off to the left there, and then you've got an enclosed driving range, which is all artificial turf, and it's all designed with contours. So the ball, when it gets shot out into the outfield, it all collects, and then the balls come back to the teeing area. So there's limited amount of operation. It's all artificial turf, so in terms of maintenance, it's very, very minimal. But it's that kind of stuff, where you don't have big spaces, but there is golf in there where people can come and learn and play, and play a lot of the shots that you would play in golf. So we started GISS, Golf in Small Spaces, around about the time of the Masters, Augusta National, and we're certainly busy on that space, really. I mean, I'm in Europe tomorrow through until the 5th of September.
Right.
I'm visiting 5 projects and potential projects. We have a few going on here in North America, so it's certainly very exciting times. And we're quite lucky because Nick's incredibly passionate about this, just like us. So he's a great voice for golf, and
yes.
And he sees a need for this, not just here in North America, but certainly globally. I have a team going out to Thailand on Wednesday. We're doing our first build out in Asia, which is quite exciting, and that's going to be accessible and open. And then down to New Zealand, where we're doing our first putting course there. So so from what's a global perspective, we really are seeing this kind of drive to this kind of non-traditional golf, if that's the word, because it's more accessible. It doesn't take a lot of time. It covers a small area, and those are what's certainly very, very pressing things today within golf.
Yeah,
Because within other spaces too.
And I noticed that the one I just have on screen there with Sydney, with Swing City, that with the cage, it's smaller. People may look at, well, it's kind of like a Top Golf, but it's much smaller. I know, working with our friends with InRange and Nick Longley, that is their compact version that they have. So it takes up like a third or a quarter of the space, and still it's fully gamified and able to track the balls. So you're really compressing and working with other partners to make sure that
I mean, certainly. I mean, InRange were involved in Swing City from recollection from the design and build. That was about 60 meters by 60 meters. So it's not a very big space. Albeit, installing artificial turf in that space, takes a fair whack of time. But we've just completed an indoor space for Lisa Meldrum up in Montreal called Total Golf Performance, and that was really only on. I mean, I think the entire space was about 10,000 square feet, and that included 5, simulators. We got a state-of-the-art short game facility. They've got a Zen green. They got putt view. I mean, it's really, really high tech, and you can go to this small space and you can, essentially practice just about every shot in golf.
Yes.
And out in Montreal, the beautiful thing there is probably 15, 20 years ago, golf was 6 months a year. Now it's 12 months a year. So that's pretty exciting for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So curious to learn about you and your background, because I've had a look. I've had a conversation, but I've also looked at your background, and you're very similar to me in the sense that you didn't start out in the golf industry. I know I kind of stumbled into it, my background in architecture and design, in sports and events, and then that led to our first entrepreneurial venture in golf more than 10 years ago. But your background, I understand, is in urban design, urban planning. So I'm always curious to learn this years ago, because you've been at this as a golf course architect and designer for over 2 decades. How did you end up getting into the golf industry and into the design part of it?
Well, how long do you have, Colin?
All the time you need.
You know, jeepers, and I've lived around the world, as you can hear from my accent, and please tell me to slow down if I'm a bit too fast here. But I grew up in Africa. I was born in Zimbabwe. Actually, was Rhodesia back back then, and then I schooled in Durban, and I went to a university in Woodford, Johannesburg, and there I did a degree in town and regional planning. So I did an honours degree in that, and you know, I guess when I was at school, I didn't even think that there was, you know, a golf course architecture path. But I enjoy sport, you know, much like yourself. I mean, I played a lot of golf, and I played rugby and cricket and soccer and all of those sports. And I was always fascinated in kind of macro planning. I was always fascinated in big cities, and you know, and in golf too. You know, kind of, you know, sketching out golf holes and, you know, sketching out golf courses. And I think you know, practically, I thought, well, probably a good fit is town planning. So I did a 4-year degree, you know, in planning, and then I guess, you know, 3/4 of the way through, I was like, well, you know, how do I kind of merge sport with you know, design and planning and you know stuff that I love, you know, because I couldn't see myself sitting in you know, an office doing zoning and with you know, heavy detailed stuff. And yeah, you know, and then I actually wrote to about 150 golf course architects. I mean, there were probably only about 150 golf course architects back then, and there probably are only about 150 now. And I, you know, I know most of them, but at the time, and there wasn't really internet, but you know, there was just enough for me to download the American Society of Golf Course Architects list of you know, designers. And you know, back then, most of them didn't even have email addresses. So I ended up writing, so you know, tubers, I ended up writing letters to all of these folk out in the States, and you know, I had a few really good replies, and ended up doing an internship in just outside of Washington D.C. For a group called L. Clark and Associates. And worked there for a year, and then, you know, came in on a specific visa, and then left whilst they were applying for a new one for me, and ended up in the UK because I had a UK passport, and you know, the visa was taking a bit long, so I ended up doing mapping work for the railways as a contractor.
All right.
And I did that for, well, gosh, about 18 months. And in that time, in fact, I actually you know, probably purchased every golf book there was, because, you know, living in London at the time, you had some really great bookstores, Foyles and Sports Pages and Waterstones. And, you know, I used to just engulf myself in woods of golf books whilst I was waiting to get back stateside. And, you know, I was a contractor back then, and I was making, I suppose, good money. So I was traveling a lot too in those years, and I didn't have a girlfriend. I mean, I'm married now, so I was going up to Scotland and Ireland and off to Europe a lot. And then, you know, I got a what's it called, from the Felder Group. I think it was probably late 2003, and then you know, started to work with them in London, and then they moved offices out to Victoria, and then I was working with them globally, and then moved to Switzerland, and you know, started my own company, Jansen Golf Design and Construction, and then moved out here, and you know, work here whilst still doing a lot of work out in Asia at the time, you know, and a high percentage of my work back then, Colin, was, you know, 18-hole builds and renovations and, you know, that kind of stuff. And it was quite taxing on me at my time. You know, I would I would go to Vietnam for 6 to 8 weeks, or Sri Lanka, or Indonesia, or Australia. And by that time I had a family, and I was like, well, how do I slow that down? And I had a friend who's working with us right now. He's my business development officer, and he helped me with the co-found Himalayas Golf. But he was good friends with Dave Pells. He had gone to university with him at Indiana, and he had worked with him a fair amount. That's Wayne McDonald. And he said, well, listen, Paul, why don't you pop on down to Texas and maybe meet Dave and his wife, JP, and his son, Eddie, because he has this really cool backyard space. I think it's only 4 acres.
Right.
Maybe there's something there. Maybe we can kind of move your kind of business trajectory into that space. And I said, well, this might be a really good opportunity. And so I flew down to Austin, Texas. Of course, Dave's since passed, and I met Dave and his wife, and I made subsequent trips down there, and we created a company called Pells Player Greens, with the idea of doing kind of short game practice stuff using grass and using artificial turf. And I guess given my contacts around the world, people were like, well, this guy knows something about artificial turf now, so maybe, he's interested in doing this and that. And our first inquiry actually came from a golf club in Brisbane, Australia called Oxley.
Okay.
The Top Stroke, course.
Right.
And again, that was through a contractor that I had worked with in Vietnam and Indonesia and Thailand, and they were consulting at the club, and the club wanted to do, wanted to repurpose a space, and they had seen the benefit of putting in a putting course from a, revenue perspective, from a demographic perspective, and they reached out to me and said, hey, Paul, can you design us a putting course with artificial turf? And I suppose, I had a number of years, designing big golf and renovating big golf. And I thought, well, it isn't that different. And really, it isn't that different, albeit that it's a much, much more, confined space. So from small beginnings, I mean, that's where we kind of started. And then, from there, we ended up doing work, here in Canada and down in the States, and then, Africa and Europe we specialize a lot in the artificial turf space, and
Yes.
We've got some really good relationships and partners in that space. Sinlawn being one of them. And that was garnered through Dave Pells. Again, I mean, I've been very lucky to meet a lot of people, and I think as any entrepreneur, a lot of it's about your what's a connections. It's not so much about what it's about who and through Dave Pells I got to meet the key players at Sinlawn and at Global and Envy Lawn and and then from that you obviously build relationships and you learn about things and you move forward. And so from Dave Pells, and then we I met a guy called Gareth Rafruski, who's very, very similar to Dave Pells, and he works with all the top lady golfers and a number of the top male golfers, and we ended up doing work together, and then we called that firm Rafruski Golf Design. So so I had all these firms, Jansen Golf Design and Pells Player Greens and Rafruski, and we were like, well, we're talking with Nick with Nick, so what do we do? And we thought, well, we need to rebrand this. And so we, in 23, we rebranded this to Himalayas Golf. And that was partly driven by the fact that, I think all of us were pretty fascinated by the putting course at St Andrews, because of the contours and, it's small space golf and it's accessible and there's ladies and kids and whatnot, and and I'm certainly very, very fascinated by the Himalayas. I mean, I've been there numerous times, and I loved the place. So I thought it worked, and so that was a few years ago, and we're very, very active right now. We've got offices around the world, and we have there's a number of folk working for us. I suppose we're slightly lean and mean. We have designers and engineers and project managers, and then we have a few Woods of construction people, and then we've got a back office, and I've got a CFO in that. And then, because we are so global, we obviously work with a lot of trusted contractors. So when we go into places, we obviously bring on key folk to help us with the work.
Wow.
Sorry,
Wow.
that's a long-winded way.
Oh well, I asked the question, so that's you were probably very more succinct than I would have been. So thank you for that. I did want to remind people we're going to be on for another 10, 15 minutes or so. So hey, if you have any questions for us, once again, this is live and interactive here on YouTube. We did, like I said, I had Lloyd on before. Lloyd loves what you're doing here. Lloyd said not only is this cool, but apparently he's your next employee because he wants to know how Lloyd can work for you. I don't know what kind of skills that Lloyd has, but apparently he loves what you're doing there.
Well, that's great to hear. That's great.
There we go.
No, we have no shortage of people asking us about, hey, is there a job here and there, and and in the guys that I employ, I always say, well, one thing, you have to enjoy traveling, because we're not a regional company. So, one minute you might be in Vancouver, or you might be in Winnipeg, or you might be in Montreal, or you might be in New York, or heck, Thailand, or Japan. So that's kind of a big part of what we do. So
yeah. Okay, the last couple of minutes, I want to kind of pull the curtains back on your design process as much as you can share with us without anything that's too proprietary, probably your secret sauce, but sure, you have it, so you're willing to share that. Your background in urban and regional planning, city design, I'm sure that whole sustainability piece is very important from those days that you're embedding into your designs by making them smaller. Of course, not only environmental sustainability, but also the financial sustainability, and even the social sustainability of growing golf for that community building, all those three pillars of sustainability. So again, I'm going to pull up your website here again, and I'm going to leave this one on. So you've got this. So maybe you could walk us through this and talk about, let's say, a scenario. Let's say I have, I don't know, a 10-acre piece of land just outside of Vancouver, and I come to you and it's like, I want to do something here, Paul, with you guys that, yes, for hardcore golfers, but also the entertainment side. I want that mix. So kind of walk us through your process and use what we have up there as a bit of a guideline, if you could.
Yeah, well, great question. And as I said, my background in course design, and having worked around the world, I think I've been to, about 80 countries, and I probably worked in about 30 of those, and I've seen a lot, and I've done a ton of presentations to do with sustainability. And as you said, it's not just environmental, but it's also economic and social too. But usually the steps go along these lines. We have an inquiry, and we would usually, myself or one of my design team would usually get on a call, cheapers with that person or that group, and then we might have a few key questions, i.e. size of land, what information do you have any mapping, do you have any photos, do you have any drone videos, what are your timelines, what are your budgets, what do you want to achieve, who is this for, and then from that perspective, we would then kind of gather that information, and then we might want to produce a concept if we have a lot of detailed information to work with, and then the client's able to give us a lot of detail. A lot of times clients actually don't know what they want, and then and then we guide them, and somewhere along the line, myself or one of my team would typically make a visit to the site before we sign anything. We obviously see that as being critical, not just because of what's going on the site, but also stuff like accessibility, availability of machinery, material, the kind of logistics side of things. Often there's things you don't see, and you're an architect yourself, Colin, but there's only so much that you can garner from a topo map and from an actual picture. So so as we kind of moving forward, and if we think that this is serious and the client's serious and this is something we want to take on and this is something that kind of fits our brand, we would typically at least one of us would usually make a trip out there, and then we would produce a concept like this. So, in this case here, this is just one green, but with multiple options here, with, tees, placed around, so you can hit different shots. You've got all the variety, Down on the south side there is the Pell's wedge target. So that's specific practice with purpose. We're very, very much, sometimes clients come to us and again, I speak about the Lisa Meldrum case. She wanted a space that was really practice driven. Some clients come to us and say, we want something that's more golf entertainment and more fun and more good for kids. Whereas in this case here, it's more kind of practice specific. So we have, modules that we've created with our player coaches that we then incorporate into the design, where golfers can actually go and actually practice with purpose, track their scores, kind of practice like the pros. And those wedge targets down south there is one of those. I mean, they're really just circular kind of targets at 10, 20, 30, or 10, 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, which are measured by, in fact, Dave Pell's measured based on all the golf pros. If a golfer's hitting to 100 yards, then this is the zone that he's hitting to. So our 100-yard target is the size of a target that a pro would be hitting into. And then you can obviously gamify that too. You have 10 shots and you try and hit it once, and then next time you try and hit it twice. So that's the kind of practice with purpose stuff. But sometimes we have a client who would say, well, Paul, we want something that's a bit more fun and entertaining. And then in that case, we might say, well, if it's only 10,000 square foot, why not do a putting course? Or we can create some fun kind of gnarly, interesting practice that might not be serious, but it's a really good way to introduce you to golf. And so we then produce a concept, and obviously there is liaison between us and the client, and then and then we might get into what's the contractual stages, and then once we've signed the contract, then we produce a concept that gets approved by the client, and then we get into detailed design, because that's important, not just for us, but because our projects are big enough. They usually there's usually some permitting and approvals that are required, so we need some detail there, grading and drainage. And then of course we need a detailed, bill of quantities too, not just, for the client, but, as I say, for us too, what's the cost, and for our, what's the construction crews. And then, and then we work with the client in terms of your planning and, logistics, and when we're going to start, and timelines, and one thing leads to the next. I mean, the really cool thing about the kind of small space stuff that we've done, and the reason why we've been able to accumulate so many projects over such a short space of time is that they really do take a limited time to actually build, whereas a big golf course can take many years, but a putting course can take 8 weeks. So that's the kind of standard. Well, I say standard, but I mean, every job's different.
Very overarching design ethos, though, from what I can see here. So I'm looking at the type of facilities that you're designing and building with yourself and Sir Nick. It seems like you're taking a different approach than, let's say, Topgolf. And I worked as a design consultant for them for a couple of years, so I have some insights there of how they work. And they make no apologies of saying, we're not here to grow golf. We're not here to be that gateway to convert people into green grass golfers. And there's been lots of studies and reports put out that does not happen. And I think Callaway's learned the hard way of pulling back on their investment, that people hitting golf balls at Topgolf doesn't convert into people buying equipment and apparel and balls that are Callaway. So it seems what you're doing, you're creating this real opportunity as this gateway for people to have their first golf experience, whether it's gamified in entertainment, or whether it's more serious, or even some mix. That seems to me that one of the kind of the design lenses that you're looking through, that you're physically creating these environments that will promote people to take that next step and want to take that next step. Are you finding that?
Oh, yes, no, certainly. And we're certainly about purposeful design, but also it needs to look and play somewhat like a real golf course.
Yes.
I think that's slightly the difference between, I suppose, Topgolf and the stuff that we do. And, we're somewhat fortunate, I suppose, because our background is in course design, and our background is in engineering, and building golf. So we know how to do it and can do it, and why not do it? And and then of course we understand the limits and the capabilities of artificial turf and grass, and then clearly from Feldo's perspective, he understands golf from a practice perspective and from what's going to make you better, because he practiced so much. So we can incorporate that into golf. So it's probably a bit more serious than just a kind of what's a flat playing field, and it's probably a bit more visual and a bit more realistic. Not just in the visuals, but in how it plays too. And that's important for us too. Because we are golf.
Right. Okay, to finish up, I got one I think is a fun question here. Of all the projects you've done, hopefully you can narrow this down to 2 of them. I want to hear the smallest physical project you have designed and built to date, and also the one that you consider I wouldn't say the craziest, but let's say a client that came to you with a very, let's say, challenging design brief that maybe you had to push yourself a little bit. So maybe one that's a little bit on the wild side, and also the one that's the smallest.
Well, smallest, we don't tend to do much backyard stuff, and that's, for numerous reasons. But we had Corey Connors, the Canadian golfer, reach out to us, about 18 months ago, and asked whether we would do something in his backyard space. And that was probably 3,500 square feet. And that would probably be the smallest that we've done. But, it was still super cool. The green was really cool, and we kind of designed a nice, cool space, and we used the Powell's underlayment system. So, it was a place like real. And then we actually built a little tee block off the back of the green, because his one space is linked to the driving range cheapest, I can't name the club, but, it's a club here in Ontario. So he can stand at the back of his green and hit drives out onto the range, nice. Which was quite nice for him. So that would be probably our smallest one. And like I said, we don't tend to do much backyard stuff. Craziest, in small spaces or in kind of just in general.
The crazier the better. You tell me.
Well, Chippers, we did this job in Vietnam, Nick and I, called Laguna Lanco, and an unbelievably beautiful site. But that was where the biggest amount of fighting happened during the Vietnam War. So, so when we were clearing the site, they were finding bombs. So they were having to stop the work. Every there was a stop to twice. And they would have guys going out with their, kind of bomb thingies. But, but it was a really, really stunning site. And, that turned out great. But that was, when we first went to look at the site, they didn't even have a road down into the site. And actually a few months before, the only way to access the site was by boat. So the first time I went to the site, I remember the road, and it was a dirt road, stopping at the very top of the mountain and then taking about an hour and a half walk down through the jungle and in the rocks, and walking along a rice paddy field with another guy, and there was a big king cobra there. I remember jumping with some fun and seeing this thing. I was like, oh my gosh! But that was probably the what's the craziest one in terms of what was there before, and with all the fighting that had gone on there. But nonetheless, that it just turned into a really spectacular golf course. That was called Laguna Lanco, and that's a wonderful sense of place with rice paddy fields. And that was something else that I've obviously learned through my time traveling, and in terms of course architecture, is that kind of sense of space and sense of belonging, and that golf course has rice paddy fields, and then you play through jungle and then into the ocean. So it's a really great golf experience. So that would probably be sorry, Colin. That would probably be the biggest golf space that I've ever worked on. So you got the smallest in Corey's, and that one's probably the biggest at probably 170 acres, is my guess, or even more.
There you go. So to finish up here, once again, I'll pull it up there. So himalayasgolf.com. If people want to have a look at all the great things you're doing, and also, as we showed earlier, they have the pull down tab there for golf in small spaces. So you can look at that. So anyone out there, because a lot of people that gravitate towards all the good things we do with Mod Golf, both with the podcast and also with the YouTube channel, are in the golf industry. So we have a lot of golf course owners and operators. So are you finding you're getting a lot of inquiries from golf course owners to try to enhance their existing facilities to drop something in?
Yeah, I would say probably 50 to 60% of our inquiries
makes sense.
Are through existing golf courses, and then the rest are through entrepreneurs, guys and girls that have the standalone space and they want to put a putting course on it because they can see the value and the return on investment, and that could be indoor and outdoor. That would be probably more inquiries from existing golf courses. But I mean, if I think about the courses in construction right now and the spaces in construction right now, I mean, probably only 25-30% are actually linked to existing golf courses. The other ones are linked to parks and city parks or indoor, factory spaces. And that's the really cool thing about what we do too, is that it's not just golf. We've had inquiries from ski resorts. We've had inquiries from resorts. We're doing something for a resort right now. We had an inquiry the other day from a shopping center. So it's kind of limitless here what you can do. Whereas I suppose with a real golf course and real grass, you are somewhat limited.
Yes.
So that's a really cool thing. And and I guess getting to work all over the world and having inquiries from all over the place. I mean, we get inquiries from. I've had inquiries from Rwanda and Cambodia and Sri Lanka and all over. So
amazing. Well, I can keep going here for another hour and keep asking you questions, but one of the great things, one of the virtues, is I'm going to hold those questions.
Yeah,
I'm going to write them down, and I'll have those to ask Sir Nick Faldo when I have him on in a month or so to give from the other side of the net to get his take on what you're doing, obviously with Faldo Design, but also with golf in small spaces. So I will show some restraint and hold off on that so I can let you go. I know you got to get on a plane tomorrow, so I'm sure you got a lot to do between now and then. But as you can see scrolling on the bottom here, hey, one simple favor I ask you, hey, if you enjoy these conversations I have with amazing entrepreneurs and innovators like Paul, show us some love. Subscribe to the channel, give us a like, leave a comment like Lloyd has done a couple of times here today. And yeah, because we're going to be doing these Mod Golf Lives. I'm ramping back up every single Monday. That's the plan, to have these conversations with innovators and entrepreneurs that are defining the future of golf. And Paul, I have to say 100% you and Himalayas Golf and your team, you are doing that. It's exciting. We're going to have to circle back in 5 years to see where you are and where the state of golf courses are at that time. So with that, Paul Jansen, thank you so much for joining us today on Mod Golf Live. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Colin.
All right. Bye for now.